Good afternoon. I am Choi Jong-il. I'm very pleased to meet all of you here today. I listened very carefully to the panel discussion to better understand where we are today and how much far we have come. And I've learned a lot through the discussion. Internet, not only for the animation sector, but has fundamentally brought changes in the contents industry as well. And so today I want to talk about the changes brought on by the internet and also what we can do to better respond to the rapid changes that are happening around us. So I was introduced as the founder and maker of the animation character Pororo, and many times people call me the father of Pororo. So let me start my talk with Pororo. It was 2003. So Pororo has celebrated 10 years anniversary. And when we first introduced Pororo back in 2003, the 7-year-olds are now in high school. And so over the past 10 years, many children were exposed to Pororo and they grew up. And through that process, Pororo is one of the most popular characters in Korea. At the same time, Pororo has been exported to 130 countries around the world. And most recently, there are various contents that have been exported, but Pororo is one of the most popular contents that had ever been exported. Of course, we were then taken second place with the introduction of Psy's Gangnam Style. And possibly Gangnam Style is the most famous Korean contents globally from Korea. And I have heard that YouTube, there was already 1.8 billion hits for the Gangnam Style video. And this is remarkable. And I want to congratulate Psy for his work. And I envy what he has achieved. But on the other hand, I'm rather surprised and flabbergasted from time to time because to export to 130 countries, our staff had to go to numerous events and exhibitions around the world to discuss and sell and market Pororo to numerous buyers. And so we had to work very hard, and we created Pororo, which is a leading popular Korean content, and it was really because of all the work that we had done over the years. But Gangnam Style was a sensation. In a very small period of time, they were able to set new records and replace the records that we worked so hard to make. How was this possible? I think we all would be thinking the same because Gangnam Style, the music video, the song was quite unique and entertaining. And that is why so many people tuned in to that music video. And it was a mega success because of YouTube, because of the internet. And because of the internet, Psy was able to reach an audience of more than 1.8 billion. And all these people enjoyed just watching the music video and also doing that Psy Gangnam Style dance as well. And so YouTube, and we're talking about not just the animation, but in all cultural content sector, YouTube has revolutionized the industry as well because they're enabling us to do things that we could not do in the past. Going back to the animation side, to make an animation film, you need a lot of resources, including a lot of funding. And in Korea, we're still challenged to secure the right resources and funding. And that's not the end of the story. For us to have a commercially viable animation, we also have to be able to successfully distribute the movies or animation that we make and meet the audiences in the theater and in the homes as well. But having all of these things put in place are very difficult because currently the industry is quite competitive and you have to win in the competition and you have to successfully sign contracts with broadcasters. And even then, at the right time slot, the right day, you're never ensured that your film will be played at the right day, at the right time slot. And when you're exporting, it becomes even more complicated and complex. Our overseas marketers, they go to the given market, and when they go to the market and they have to meet buyers from around the world, and they have to successfully promote the attractiveness of our content. And then our buyers will buy our content, and that's not the end of the story either, because these buyers will then have to go back to their home market, and they will have to talk to their broadcasters to make sure that the broadcasters are willing to introduce that film or that content in a right day, in the right time slot, and the children in that home market are willing to tune into that channel at that given hour to be able to be exposed to our Korean content. So this process is extremely complicated. There are many layers and there are many steps. But now, with the introduction of the internet and widespread penetration of internet, we are able to streamline this process significantly. Recently, what I experienced was I was able to meet a Korean who went abroad, got married, and had children in that overseas country. And she never taught her children English, but through Pororo, and her children watched Pororo over the internet and was able to learn Korean as a result. And so I was very proud of what had happened. It was all possible because of the internet. Internet enabled us and everyone around the world to be able to choose the time that was most convenient to them to be able to consume the contents that they chose. And they could consume the contents repeatedly, and they are able to upload their own user contents as well. So when we say we're making an animation and distributing animation, and to do all of these things, you need a lot of people, you need to invest a lot of time, and you need to have the right capital to be able to do this successfully. So if we talk about contents, including animation contents, we're always challenged with the fact that you need to always have large companies lead the process because they had to be backed by capital. So just looking at the animation segment, in the early 1990s, we had TV series that were created, and 20, 30 people had to draw the sketches and had to create the program sets and do the film for months and months. But for us, we can do this with less than 100 people. Because in the past, we had to hire 200, 300 people, but we are able to do this with less people, just 100 people. And in the past, a lot of things were manually drawn, but now we are able to rely on the computer, and a lot of process has been successfully automated. And in the near future, I suspect that it could even be done with less than 100 people. Maybe a handful of people would be enough, less than 10, or a dozen of people would be sufficient to create the same content. If I take mobile games as an example, you just need 2 or 3 people to produce a content. And I'm sure one person here in this audience could have an end-to-end successful development of a mobile game. And there was already a case where one person developed a mobile game and was a mega hit. So we live in an era where a content, and if a person was educated enough to produce a content, can easily make his or her own content and distribute the contents to a wider audience. In the past, you need to have the help of the large conglomerates to be able to successfully distribute what you have created. But things have changed so significantly that anyone can create his or her own content. And thus, I would say that competition has become infinite, or it has become even fiercer than before. And in the era of infinite competition, what do you need to do to survive and be successful? A lot of people are thinking about this. Because I am running an animation company, from time to time I have an opportunity to meet with young students or young entrepreneurs who are interested in running their own animation company. And they ask me all sorts of questions. And young people, they want to work for an animation company and they ask, do I have to be a good artist or what do I have to study? And they also ask me that to be commercially successful, what do I need to do? So these are the frequent questions that I'm asked most often by the young people that I meet. And yes, if you can draw very well, then the likelihood of being hired by an animation company is very high. But to do so, you also have to recognize that there are many good drawers and good artists around us. You have to compete with hundreds of people who are able to draw as well as you and to be chosen amongst this huge group, a huge pool of artists. And it's not the end of the story. You also have to be able to be competitive because there will be future generations of younger people, younger artists who could draw as well as you as well. Thus, in making an animation, many of the things that were done manually are now automated by the computer. And the computer processes will develop further so that they take away more work that had previously done by people. So now you're not only competing against people, but you're going to be competing against computers as well. So for me, a wise way would be to focus on areas that computers can never do, or an area that cannot be easily emulated or copied. So what would that be? And for me, I call that creativity. We have Korean pop, online games, dramas. All of these contents are very rapidly developing and becoming quite competitive. And they're being exported very successfully. And that's possible because in the past, we had huge broadcasters play a critical role, but now we can have smaller entities also being able to produce and distribute contents around the world. In the past, the distribution platform had been run by big companies because big media companies own the platforms and their influence is weakening as a result. And now what we're seeing is that the gravitation, the shift, the weight is moving from the media broadcasters to the developers. And today we're talking about how to globalize Korean contents. And Korean contents is developing very rapidly, but the growth is somewhat stagnant, slightly, in recent times. But with the widespread penetration of the internet, it's enabling a company or companies in Korea as an opportunity to make great leap forward. Korean contents industry can be more successful and become more successful not just in Korea, but around the world. And in order for that to be possible, we have the industry, academia, and the government engaged in in-depth dialogue for this end. And they will be talking about various prescriptions. And for me, if I was asked that question, my answer would be creativity. Thank you.